Welcome to Fire is Orange, a short story compilation by #1 New York Times bestselling author Scott Sigler. 10 titillating tales to tantalize your thoughts. Hello, junkies. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Awesome Kwanzaa. Insert your holiday here because I hope you had a very good holiday season. I had a wonderful holiday season. I actually took a day off. I took Christmas Day off. Whew. I feel refreshed. Welcome to episode number 11 of Fire is Orange. We have the third installment of our 5-part Hippo story for you in this episode. This might possibly be the most disturbing episode I have ever written, and that is coming from the guy who penned the chicken scissors scene. This is episode 11. Episode 13 wraps up Fire is Orange, which means it is time for our traditional post-story Q&A episode. Almost time for that. Do you have questions or comments about Fire is Orange or any Siglerverse tale? Email those questions to info@emptyset.com. A real girl will read me that question. I will respond in real time for that episode. Now, if you want to hear your voice on this podcast, we make it easy. Email an MP3 of you asking me a question to info@emptyset.com. A real girl will play it. I will listen and respond in real time. If you do send an audio question, though, keep it short so that we can get through it because we'll probably have a whole bunch. Keep it to the point and we'll answer it. Yes. If you're wondering if this might be the last Q&A you ever hear, it is possible. Is it the last Q&A for quite some time? Absolutely. As we said in a previous episode, we are considering taking a break from the podcast, so I don't know when you might get your next chance to ask me a question. Just considering taking a break, mind you, as once Fire is Orange, we're out of story, and we're not sure where to go from there. So speaking of story, let's get you caught up on this story. Let me get you up to speed on the Hippo. Then we're going to cook up part number 3. It's time to batch it up. Previously on Fire is Orange. Tavena and Peter were just 2 more vampires trying to get by, to battle against the oppressive humans that wanted them dead. The Hippo put an end to their resistance fighting. Gravely wounded, Tavena is now the Hippo's captive. She's about to meet the Hippo's father and, unfortunately, find out that Peter isn't quite gone.
Tavena meets Dad. Tavena had hated high school. How shitty was it that she would die in one? The fat man rolled her down the hallway, one hand on the dolly, the other on a powerful flashlight. When she could open her eyes, the searing volcano in her hip forced them shut most of the time. She saw that school janitors served more of a role than she'd ever guessed. The place was trashed. "Where are you taking me?"
"The gym," he said. "To meet Dad, like I told you."
Everything slurred to darkness. A sound brought her back to reality, a sound she remembered from her days in school, that signature chunk-click of a heavy gym door opening. When reality returned, the fat man was rolling her onto a small basketball court. The room caught every sound and kept it alive in a fading echo. Skylights let in some of the morning sun, but much of the gym remained shrouded in deep shadow. On the floor, she saw the usual markings, the painted key, the three-point line, the baseline, but also a long curve done in scratched duct tape. Bits of black outlined the gray tape as if the strips had been there for a while. He stopped her 5 feet shy of the strange, curving line, then set her upright. The gym felt still, unnaturally so.
"What's with the tape?"
"I call it the line of death,"
the fat man said. The stillness broke as something moved fast, coming out of the shadows and at them, A black man, naked and snarling. The man crossed the floor running on all fours, growling like a wolf, coming so fast, and Tavena wanted to run, but she couldn't move. The man leapt, fingers extended, teeth bared. His head snapped back. His feet continued the original path. The man fell on his back, thumping against the hardwood floor.
"Hi, Dad,"
the fat man said.
"How was your day?"
The pain faded a bit as Tavena watched the naked man scramble to his feet. She saw he was wearing a collar, thick and made of steel, that connected to a metal cable running up to the ceiling. She looked skyward. The cable ran to a spool set up in the gym rafters. The man, an old man, in his 60s, Tavena could now see, leaned against the cable, trying to reach her. Drool spilled from his lower lip. Tavena had no doubt that if the man could get free, he would tear her to pieces and start eating her.
"That's my dad,"
the fat man said.
"He's not feeling all that great lately."
He pointed up to the spool of cable.
"That keeps him in place, but gives him some range of motion. He's got to be able to move a little until he gets better. He's restrained, sure, but he's not an animal."
"That's exactly what he is," Tavena thought. Whatever strain this man was, it wasn't her strain. She'd seen people like him before, though, and she'd killed them. Charlemagne even organized hunts because creatures like the psycho's dad killed blood just as often as they killed beets. "He's not going to get better," Tavena said. "He's already gone."
"Oh, pshaw,"
the fat man said.
"Dad's doing fine. Just have to make sure he gets enough to eat."
Tavena heard a rustling, then the man reached around in front of her, showed her a small remote control. It looked like a car alarm remote, the kind that would hang on a keychain. Someone had scraped off the labels and written in new ones with a silver pen. Loosen instead of lock. Retract instead of unlock. Buzz where the trunk open would be, and above the red panic button, the word release.
"That collar Dad wears gives him a little jolt if he tries to get out any of the main doors,"
he said.
"Usually he's chained up, though. I can give him a little zapparoonie with this if I have to. It's really only safe way to move him if he has a full belly. Dementia, you know? It's hard on a family."
Dementia. The old man was a walking killer, the kind that would slaughter anything he came across, human, werewolf, vamp, probably even his own son if he got the chance, and the fat man called it dementia? Someone was crazy, all right, and it wasn't the drooling old man.
"Dad earns his keep,"
the fat man said.
"Sometimes he helps get rid of trespassers."
He turned to face his father.
"Dad, I'm taking her back to the truck and putting in a batch, okay? I'll bring you some cupcakes when they're done."
The old man just growled.
"You too, Dad,"
the fat man said. Then Tavena was tilted backward and was rolling again. Yuki cracks the case. Karin wanted to take Yuki into the Academy HQ, show the place off a little, but the reporter had yet to leave the Night 15. "It's more comfortable in the building," Karin said. "You don't have to sit in the parking lot, you know." "Shh," Yuki said. She had a tablet computer in her lap, was focused on a video. Karin sighed and watched Yuki watch the video. As far as Karin knew, Yuki hadn't dated any famous men. The rockstar reporter would be great paparazzi fodder for actors, athletes, businessmen, and such, and yet nothing. So maybe, just maybe, Yuki wasn't interested in guys at all. A girl could always hope. The video wasn't great quality, shot at night from a drone. It showed a shambling mound of a man handling a dead body. The whole clip was only about 15 seconds long, from the time the man came into view until he stood and aimed a Barrett sniper rifle at the drone taking the video. Then a flash of light, then static. Yuki played it again. The big man in the video carried the 4-foot-long M82A2 like it was nothing more than a common carbine. The 50 caliber weapon fired the same massive 12.7 by 99 millimeter rounds as a Browning machine gun. In the right hands, it could kill from a distance of over 2,000 meters. The Hippo could probably take you out from over a mile away. No matter how many times Karen saw it, the end of the video still blew her mind. The man shoulder-fired the Barrett and took out a drone that wasn't more than a few feet across. A drone that was probably 200 feet above him. Yeah, the Hippo knew what he was doing. Yuki finished watching the video for the 5th time. All of the... well, decapitations isn't the right word, she said. How about cleavings? Karen offered. Yuki's nose wrinkled up. Not quite right, but it'll work until I can riff on it. All the cleavings were in Oakland? Karen nodded. Or close to it. We've found 6 so far. You've found 6, so it's probably more? Probably a lot more, Karen said. Those are just the ones we've come across during various recon missions. It's not like we're trying to stop this guy, if you know what I mean. Yuki's fingers drummed against the tablet's glass. I would guess he's got ties to the area, otherwise why Oakland? That's what we figured too, Karen said. But like I told you, facial recognition came up with nothing. We have a list of people who lived in the area and might have had experience with the Barrett or access to one when the first V-War got bad. Special Forces training, SWAT, arms dealers, even competitive target shooters. My guys say from the way the corpses were shot and the way the man handled the Barrett, he's not someone who just picked up a 50 cal rifle for the first time. We've cleared a bunch, but 52 people on that list are missing. You know how it is these days with all the violence. There's no way of knowing who's dead and who just decided to drop off the grid. Yuki nodded. Ain't that the truth? She pulled absently at her lower lip, a trace of lipstick smeared onto her forefinger and thumb. You said 52? Karen felt her heart sink a little. She'd been giving Yuki nothing but good news until now. Even with help, a reporter trying to track down 52 missing people in an area overrun with Bloods, it was... That's great, Yuki said. It is? My God, Karen. Only 52 names. You've handed me this amazing story and done most of the legwork. I could kiss you. Please do. The words were out of Karen's mouth before she thought to check them. Huh? Yuki blinked. Oh, right. Her little hands reached out to Karen's face, and Karen's chest thrummed with surprise. Yuki cupped her cheeks, pulled her in, and planted a single firm smooch on Karen's forehead. Karen, you're the best. Thanks, Karen said. I try. A kiss on the forehead? What was that? Did that mean something? Or was Yuki just caught up in the moment? With those lips. So soft, so warm. We have to find the connection to the Oakland area, Yuki said. Karen nodded. Sure, but I told you, Yuki, we checked all the available records. Right idea, wrong kind of records. This level of violence isn't survival, it's personal. Let me cross-reference your list of names against news stories. If I'm lucky, whatever happened to your Hippo happened early on before news crews stopped going to Oakland. Batch it up. Tavena watched the psycho slide 3 cupcake trays of red velvet batter into the food truck's oven. It wasn't like she could do anything else. Still tied to the dolly, she was just inside the closed rear doors. Her entire field of view was this obese asshole playing home ec. The truck kitchen would have been cramped for a normal-sized person. She wasn't sure how the fat man got around so well. Everything was so compact. The oven, the fridge, metal cabinets, the sink set in the stainless steel counter, some kind of ammo-making rig bolted onto that counter. The same efficiency he used for cooking applied to that rig. Neatly stacked Tupperware containers held what she assumed were shell casings, bullets, and other things. The round that had destroyed her hip? He'd probably made that with his own hands. The killer slid into the oven 2 metal pans with what looked like meatloaf and a glass casserole dish with what looked like eggs and broccoli.
I like to batch things up, he said. If the oven's already hot, why not conserve energy, am I right?
Tavena didn't answer.
And that phrase, batch it up,
the fat man said.
If I ever get a cooking show, I think that could be my signature, like Bam or Yummo, know what I mean?
Just kill me,
Tavena said.
I hurt so bad. Just get it over with.
You kids these days,
the psycho said.
Always in a hurry.
He shut the oven door.
While that's cooking, I'll do the icing. That's what I wanted you to see, really. The trick is in the preparation. For this batch, I'll use your buddy. If you don't start talking, the next batch will be you.
Batch could be her? What the hell was this lunatic talking about? The pain made it hard to track, hard to think.
He wasn't my buddy,
Tavena said.
We were just assigned together.
The fat man smiled.
Assigned? Someone put you two together? Someone in charge?
Damn it. She'd said something without meaning to. She had to stay sharp. Not give up anything on Charlie. Charlie had a vision, a destiny that went beyond the life of one soldier.
Who's in charge, girlie? Tell me and I'll make the pain go away.
Tavena found the strength to shake her head. The big man opened a small fridge, pulled out the Tupperware container. Inside that container, Peter's brain, bobbing about in pinkish water. The fat man turned to the truck's small sink. He turned the faucet on halfway, let the water run. He opened a cabinet and pulled out a metal colander, his movements definitive and precise. This mobile kitchen was tiny, but it was his, and he knew it well. He set the colander next to the Tupperware container.
You don't have to die, you know,
he said.
I mean, if I was going to kill you, would I have let you use Dad's mask and dolly?
You put your father in this rig?
The fat man nodded.
Sure. How else am I going to get him around? We have another place we stay in sometimes, just to make sure we're not too predictable.
He removed the Tupperware lid and gently lifted out Peter's brain. Water ran down the folds and dripped first into the Tupperware, then into the colander as the man set the brain inside. Tavena saw that bloody water drain through in rivulets, run down the counter to flow into the sink, kept away from the floor by the counter's raised edge.
You have to soak it for about an hour, the man said. Helps get the blood out of there. Nobody likes blood, really. Nobody except for you animals.
He gave the colander a quick, firm shake to knock off excess water, then held it in front of Tavena's masked face. She stared at it, couldn't even close her eyes to block out the sight. Peter's brain, all that he had ever been, now nothing more than a grayish-pink mass of folds in that all-too-familiar shape. Chunks of bone dotted the surface, as did more than a few strands of blonde hair.
Take a good look, the man said. This is how you end up if you don't tell me what's going on.
Tavena's last bit of resilience faded away, perhaps bludgeoned by the sight in front of her, perhaps finally lassoed and dragged away by the soul-piercing fire in her hip. She had gone through the change. She had become a taker of life and an eater of flesh. Tavena was supposed to be the nightmare, not be in one. The brain, all those folds. Where was the part that made up Peter's annoying personality? Which part held his selfishness and laziness? Where would the parts be on her brain then made her who she was.
Okay,
She said.
I'll talk.
The blue-eyed fat man nodded.
Mm-hmm. I know.
He turned back to the sink. He set the colander under the gently running water, then started picking bone bits off the brain.
You gotta rinse it,
The fat man said.
bone dust mostly, but sometimes the saw kicks off little splinters. Those are not fun to bite into when you're trying to enjoy a cupcake. And I'm sure you've eaten food with a hair in it. That's just gross.
She stared at his broad back. She could see the big lump under his arm where the handle of that obscene handgun distended his black jacket. She wished she could break free, sink her fingers into his fat neck and tear it to pieces, but she had nothing left with which to fight. Wait a minute, just wait a goddamn minute.
You said the hair. Are you going to cook Peter's brain?
Mm-hmm.
The fat man said.
Going to boil it. It keeps his shape, mostly, but when it's cooked, it's all creamy. Some butter, some cream cheese, some sugar. Then batch it up, and you've got frosting.
The tentacles of pain squeezed her, caressed her, slid all around her in a constant embrace. Frosting. The cupcakes the giant freak had just put in the oven. He was going to make fucking brain frosting to put on cupcakes.
I'll talk,
She said.
Told you that. I'll talk. What do you want to know? Just ask me. I can't take this anymore. I can't.
He turned sharply, all the humor gone from his eyes.
I'm cooking right now,
He said.
Show some respect.
You're fucking insane.
I'm insane? You don't see me eating people, do you?
You put goddamn brains in cupcakes, you psycho piece of shit.
Suddenly his hand was on her throat, so strong, so crushing, squeezing hard enough to make her forget about her hip, if only for a moment.
You monsters eat babies. You have to be punished. All I'm doing is making some motherfucking cupcakes.
He squeezed harder. Tavena didn't even close her eyes, just prayed.
Please, God, please,
To die, prayed to die, but
please don't let him use my brains as icing.
the fat man let go. He turned back to the sink.
Batch it up,
He said calmly. She drew in a desperate breath. He continued, voices deep and smooth as it had been before he grabbed her throat.
Batch it up, am I right? So with the brain cleaned, we boil it for 12 to 15 minutes.
He put the brains in a pot, filled the pot with water, then put the pot on the tiny stove. The whoof of lighting gas, then the hissing of the same.
12 to 15 minutes,
He said.
That's all the time you have to answer my questions, and answer them correctly. Or today I'm making a double batch.
That was part 3 of The Hippo. Next week, Big Baby gets chippy, and Harry has a whole new set of problems on his big fat hands. Don't forget your question. Send it in for our Q&A episode. Send that question about Fire's Orange or any Sigler story to info@emptyset.com. We'll take questions. We'll take comments. We'll take raw adulation and Sigler worship. We'll take it all. And that is it for this week. We will be back next week with part 4 of The Hippo. And until then, we will talk to you all real soon. You have been listening to Fire is Orange, a short story compilation by #1 New York Times bestselling novelist Scott Sigler. Narrated by Scott Sigler, Ray Porter, and A. Kovacs. Produced by A. Kovacs. Engineered by Steve Riekeberg. Copyright 2019, Empty Set Entertainment. All rights reserved. For more information about the author, visit scottsigler.com. Theme music by the band Amps and Volts.